In just over 24 hours, MLB writers' votes for the Hall of Fame will be revealed, and we'll know who joins the greatest figures in baseball history in Cooperstown. There are 12 newcomers to this year's Hall of Fame ballot, headlined by Adrian Beltre, Joe Mauer, and Chase Utley, joining others like Todd Helton, Billy Wagner, and Andrew Jones, all in pursuit of that elusive 75% goal. Here's who I think belongs in the Hall of Fame for this 2024 class. And keep in mind, this is as subjective as it gets. We've seen some ballots released publicly that cause us to scratch our heads, and I'm sure that you'll find mine no different. Let's start with the newcomers. Of the newest eligible players, Adrian Beltre and Joe Mauer have the strongest cases. Mauer was a .306 hitter in his career, and Beltre has well over 3,000 hits, and both were premier defensive players at their positions in their long, illustrious careers. 3 Gold Gloves and an MVP for Mauer, 5 Gold Gloves and 2 Platinum Gloves for Beltre. Both should be slam dunks for the Hall of Fame. Now here's the tricky part. A few of the other newcomers are more fringe candidates. Utley finished in the top 10 in MVP voting 3 times, while recording at least 7 wins above replacement 5 years in a row from 2005 to 2009. But for middle infielders, longevity tends to be more of a struggle than corner infielders, and Utley's peak was relatively short-lived compared to some of the other candidates on the ballot in recent years. I think Utley will ultimately be in the Hall of Fame, just not on his first attempt. David Wright, the most recent captain of the Mets, won 2 Gold Gloves and Silver Sluggers, was a 7-time All-Star, and has a career OPS plus of 133. Over his 14-year career, Wright was as steady a presence as ever at third base, but only when he was able to stay healthy. And indeed, Wright suffered from injuries at the tail end of his career, playing in just 75 games over his last 2 seasons. I think it'll be a tougher call for voters a few years from now, but for now I'd probably guess that Wright will miss out. Of the other newcomers, the only one I'd include as maybe worth discussing is Jose Bautista, if only for his bat flip heard around the world as rationale. Jokes aside, Bautista at his peak was one of the most feared power hitters in the game. During his 6 All-Star seasons with Toronto, Bautista hit 227 home runs with 582 RBIs and an OPS plus of 154. 4 of those years, he finished in the top 10 in MVP voting, peaking at 3rd in 2011. But part of Hall of Fame candidacy deals with longevity, and Bautista took a long time in the league before he found his stride, and his peak was relatively short-lived. I think he may get some more consideration in a few years' time, but for me, he's not quite a first ballot Hall of Famer. Now that we've outlined some of the bigger, newer names on the ballot, it's time to break down my selections for the 2024 Hall of Fame. Again, I don't have a vote, but based on my lifetime of baseball fandom, here's who I'd say belongs in the Hall of Fame. Adrian Beltre, Joe Mauer, Todd Helton, Andrew Jones, Billy Wagner, Gary Sheffield, Manny Ramirez, Alex Rodriguez, and Carlos Beltran. I've talked about Beltre and Mauer's credentials. For me, they're in. Longevity and elite performance for years. Shouldn't be any question, and I think they get in. Todd Helton is a polarizing one because he played for the Rockies, and we know the Coors Field effect does a lot for hitting stats. Helton's average was about 50 points better at home than it was on the road, but he still hit .285 on the road in his career, and across his 17 seasons, he has a higher walk rate than strikeout rate. Regardless of how far the ball travels, that's a thoroughly impressive stat and a thoroughly impressive career. Add in his 3 Gold Gloves, 4 Silver Sluggers, and a batting title, and Helton gets a nod from me. I don't know why Andrew Jones is not already a Hall of Famer, and I'm not just saying that because I'm a Braves fan. Jones was one of the most complete players in the game during his career, and while he didn't enjoy the same success outside of Atlanta, he was a big reason why the Braves won 14 straight division titles, 10 consecutive Gold Gloves, a franchise record 51 home runs in a season prior to 2023 when he was eclipsed by Matt Olson, and a career 67 wins above replacement. Jones should be in the Hall of Fame. Billy Wagner had one thing working against him in his career. He pitched in the same era as Mariano Rivera. If not for the latter's greatness, we'd be talking about Billy Wagner as one of the premier relievers in baseball. With a .231 ERA and a whip of .998, Wagner didn't just limit runs. He dominated the opposition. He posted a career Ks per 9 of almost 12, coming in at 11.9. While 24 wins above replacement for his career may not seem all that spectacular, when you compare WAR per innings pitched, he's on a better trajectory than the late, great Roy Halladay, who, along with Mike Mussina, were the last 2 starters elected to the Hall, back in 2019. 24 wins above replacement in 903 innings pitched for Wagner, compared to 65.4 wins above replacement in 2,749 and a third innings pitched for Roy Halladay. Yes, you could get into the volume argument here, but Wagner belongs in the Hall of Fame and definitely gets my vote. Now we get into the interesting part of the ballot, the alleged PED users. Look, I've been consistent on this as I've gotten older, and you can see this in some of my older videos. While steroids help with the strength training side of the game, they don't automatically make you put the bat on the ball. They don't give you the tools that you've already had, and they don't automatically make your muscles bigger without significant amounts of training. That said, Gary Sheffield not already being a Hall of Famer is baffling to me. Say what you will about him and steroids, but in order to have more walks than strikeouts in your career while being one of the most dangerous power hitters of your generation, you've got to have a great approach and great mechanics. Sheffield had those and then some. 300 plus more walks than strikeouts over his career, along with 509 home runs, 5 Silver Sluggers, a batting title, and a 9-time All-Star. Sheffield is a Hall of Famer. Plus, every single one of us growing up tried to impersonate that iconic batting stance. I mean, seriously, who hasn't? You can't have David Ortiz in the Hall of Fame and not include his main partner in crime, Manny Ramirez. Manny was just as lethal in the postseason as Big Papi, hitting .285 in his postseason career with a 1.75 win probability added. In other words, he was almost worth 2 full wins in the postseason by himself. Along with Ortiz, Ramirez led the Red Sox to championships in 2004 and 2007 and is part of the reason I fell in love with baseball. Call it biased, but the fact remains that Manny is a Hall of Famer. This one is going to upset some people, but when you look at the facts and figures, Alex Rodriguez is one of the greatest players to ever play the game of baseball. 696 home runs, a 14-time All-Star, 10 Silver Sluggers, 2 Gold Gloves, 3 league MVPs, and a championship in 2009 with the Yankees. Oh, and a 113.7 wins above replacement, good for 13th all time. Say what you will about his suspension for steroid use, and of course, lying about it, but the fact remains that in order to have those numbers, you have to be good at the game, and combine the work ethic with the raw talent. Rodriguez, of course, supplemented those things with PEDs, but the fact remains that he's one of the all-time greats. He gets a vote from me. Rounding out my ballot is Carlos Beltran, despite his involvement with the 2017 Houston Astros cheating scandal. Beltran was as good a player as most on the ballot. 9-time All-Star, 3 Gold Gloves, 2 Silver Sluggers, a Rookie of the Year. The accolades are there, but as is the longevity, winning Rookie of the Year in his age 21 season, his first All-Star in his age 27 season, and his last in his age 39 season. Not only was Beltran among the league's best, but he was able to perform at that high level throughout the duration of his career. He gets a nod from me to round out my ballot. At the time of recording this video, around 160 ballots have been made public, and it looks as though Adrian Beltre, Todd Helton, Joe Mauer, and Billy Wagner will make the Hall of Fame in 2024. However, that number represents just under 50% of the total ballot pool, and a lot can change between now and Tuesday's announcement. As it stands though, the Hall of Fame should at least get a little bit bigger. Now it's your turn. Let me know who you think belongs in the Hall of Fame, and we'll take a look when the results are announced on Tuesday night. If you've made it this far, a like is greatly appreciated, and make sure you subscribe for more. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.